In 2016, YouTube's recommendation algorithm discovered something its creators never programmed. Outrage is addictive, not because it's true, but because anger keeps eyes on screens. This is artificial narrow intelligence, the dominant type of AI deployed at scale in 2026. It finds patterns in oceans of data and repeats them with superhuman precision. Give it millions of examples, and it will outperform you at one specific task. Just one. And yet it has already conquered the digital world. Now it's invading the physical world and failing in ways we're only beginning to see. It starts on the screen. You've seen AI as recommendation engines, Netflix, Spotify, YouTube deciding what comes next. But in Myanmar, Facebook's engagement algorithm learned that posts about the Rohingya Muslim minority generated massive interaction, so it amplified them. UN investigators said Facebook had a decisive role in Myanmar's crisis. Thousands were killed in the violence that followed. The algorithm didn't decide to incite violence. It decided what millions saw daily, and what it showed them was rage. This is the first fracture, brilliant at finding regularities, catastrophic at meaning. In finance, the invasion runs deeper. High-frequency trading accounts for a substantial share of U.S. equity trading, executing decisions in microseconds. These systems find statistical edges in price data faster than any human could perceive. Credit algorithms decide who gets loans by mining unexpected correlations, how fast you type, even your phone's battery percentage when you hit submit. That kind of alternative data shows up more in fintech startups and less regulated lending markets than in traditional banks. They aren't causes of creditworthiness, just signals that happen to correlate with default. AI is making financial decisions about your life based on signals you can't see, extracted from data you didn't know was collected, for reasons that can't be explained even by the people who built the system. Then came November 2022. ChatGPT reached 100 million users in 2 months, the fastest growth in tech history. Models like GPT-4 scored in the 89th percentile on competitive programming, surpassed the bar exam in the top 10%, achieved PhD-level performance in physics and biology. But here's what they actually do. Predict the next word, ask one why the sky is blue, and it generates a coherent explanation by predicting which words usually follow that question in its training data. It doesn't see the sky, it completes patterns, fluency without understanding. That deception is about to leave the screen. Then it moved into the physical world. Estimates suggest China deployed 600 to 700 million surveillance cameras by 2024. Not passive recording, but active recognition. Systems that identify faces in crowds and track individuals across cities. The Sharp Eyes project integrates private cameras from shops with public street networks, creating unified grids where anonymity becomes increasingly difficult. In March 2025, China announced facial recognition regulations requiring company consent and transparency. But there was a carve-out. Public security forces got unrestricted access. No consent required. The state expands its vision while appearing to regulate it. France authorized police authorities to experiment with automated video surveillance for Paris 2024, with experimental provisions extending to March 31st, 2025. Each Olympics since 2004 has normalized surveillance infrastructure that persists beyond the games. Waymo's autonomous vehicles process camera and sensor data in real time, learning to navigate intersections and predict pedestrian behavior through billions of simulated miles. They don't understand traffic socially, eye contact, hesitation, human intent. They recognize situations they've seen millions of times before. And in biology, the conquest deepens. In May 2024, AlphaFold 3 predicted the 3D structure of proteins, DNA, RNA, and their molecular interactions, solving a 50-year-old problem. It's 50% more accurate than previous methods, accelerating drug discovery timelines by over half. Transformative science. But here's the question. What happens when the pattern breaks? That's when the fragility reveals itself. Researchers placed a small sticker on a stop sign, exploiting how neural networks process images. The car didn't slow down. It accelerated. This is an adversarial attack, a tiny change that exposes how brittle pattern recognition really is. Change the pixels correctly, and the recognition catastrophically fails. AlphaFold 3, tested on D peptides, mirror images of normal proteins. It showed 51% chirality violation rate. Coin flip accuracy. The model that solves protein folding becomes random when chirality flips, because D peptides are rare in training data. Back in the GPT-4 era, a 2025 study on medical diagnosis found models of that generation scored 4.5 out of 10 on complex cases, while human doctors scored 6.0 and specialists scored 7.2. This is technical fragility. AI works until it doesn't. But moral failure cuts deeper. Yet University of Washington researchers submitted identical resumes to AI screening systems. Same credentials. Only names change. Jake, Molly, Emily, Brad versus Deshaun, Latoya, Jamal, Lakeisha. 85% of the time, systems favored white-sounding names, 9% favored black-sounding names. The algorithm isn't racist in the human sense, but it learned from historical hiring data that encodes decades of discriminatory practices. In July 2024, Mobley versus Workday survived dismissal. What the court wrote, making an artificial distinction between software decision-makers and human decision-makers would potentially gut anti-discrimination laws in the modern age. Cases involving State Farm's fraud detection and CBS's video interview systems reveal the same story. AI amplifies historical injustice while wearing the mask of mathematical objectivity. This is moral fragility. It doesn't understand fairness. It replicates unfairness with superhuman efficiency. And now the final fracture. Deep fake files surged from 500,000 in 2023 to 8 million in 2025. In 2024, ARUP lost $25 million to a deepfake scam. An employee received a video call from the CFO, surrounded by colleagues instructing a funds transfer. Everyone on the call was synthetic. The money vanished. We've reached the Infocalypse, where trust in evidence collapses because synthesis becomes indistinguishable from reality. Voice cloned from seconds of audio, faces mapped onto bodies in real time, text generated in any style, at any scale. Detection exists, but is always behind generation. By the time we spot this year's deepfakes, next year's are already better. Here's the existential question. If I can't trust what I see, what I hear, or what I read, what still counts as evidence? AI has given us superhuman recognition. In doing so, it's undermined the very possibility of knowing. So here's the reckoning. 3 conquests and 3 failures. AI dominates the digital realm, recommendations, finance, language, but creates filter bubbles, inscrutability, and the illusion of understanding. It invades the physical world, surveillance, autonomy, molecular biology, but remains brittle against edge cases and adversarial perturbations. And when tested against exception, context, and responsibility, it reveals 3 fragilities. Technical, it breaks where regularities are absent. Moral, it encodes injustice as optimization. Epistemic, it destroys the conditions for truth. We build a mind that excels at everything reducible to statistics. We're discovering too late that the most important things can't be reduced at all. This is artificial narrow intelligence in 2026, not the prelude to general intelligence, the end state of pattern matching at planetary scale. A brilliant where data is abundant, dangerous where judgment matters. The question isn't whether AI will get smarter, it's whether we'll get wiser. The foundational books and academic sources for this video are linked in the description below. This video is part of our AI Saga playlist, where we're mapping the full arc of artificial intelligence, from the narrow systems of today to the speculative futures ahead, new videos twice a week. Because understanding AI properly isn't about hype. It's about seeing the full picture, fragilities included.